Today's lesson we're going to be looking at scales of production and also some manufacturing considerations. So what you're going to need to do this lesson, set your page up as directed in the video, make notes around the different scales of productions, and then we're going to answer some exam-based questions using the Get Busy method. So this is how I want you to set your page up. So how many does it make for your production? How can you tell if a product is used made in this scale? Put some examples of products in and the advantages and disadvantages. So it might be an idea just to pause it now, set your page up and then press play. Okay, today's aims is to be able to understand manufacturing considerations, including supply chains and scales of production, to be able to evaluate scales of production, to be able to apply understanding to past paper questions. So supply chains are the process of what a product goes through from sourcing the material to being distributed to a consumer. You can also call it a life cycle analysis. So we normally start with a raw material. So if we're talking about plastic bottles, that'll be oil. It's then supplied and then it's turned into a polymer. The polymer is then manufactured and blow molded into a bottle. It's distributed to the factories or the shops, and then the customer then buys it from the shop and then it's consumed. So what's the difference between a warehouse and a factory? So a warehouse is for storage and distribution. This is where products are stocked, a little bit like if you go to IKEA at the end of the shop and you go basically pick what parts you bought that day. That's pretty much what a warehouse is. A factory is where your products are made and assembled, then ready to go off to the warehouse. So supply chains, how will these affect how you would make products? So smaller, less equipped factories would impact the amount of products you could make. Availability and cost of materials. If you haven't got your materials available, or if they're increasing cost, that's going to affect obviously the production of your product and the making behind that. The amount of storage is obviously a big issue. So if you've got a big demand for your products and you haven't got enough storage, you're obviously not going to be working to your full capacity. Size of the distribution team, how these products are going to be basically how they're going to get to the customer. So that's essentially what a supply chain is. We're going to look now at scales of production. So, which scale for which production? So we've got the first one, this is one-off production. Basically things are made once. Batch production, things are made within a range of around about 10 to 100. Finally, mass production, making it in high mass volumes. Sometimes we call it high volume production. First one we're going to look at is one-off. So this is a single manufacture, it's just one item. It's normally custom made and designed. It's bespoke in how it's manufactured. So how can you tell if it's a one-off production? So normally specialist companies, normally specialist materials, high quality items. They're normally made by skilled workers and they're expensive. So some of you might go onto the Timberland website or the Nike website and customise your shoes. That obviously increases the price of them. It might be that you've customised a car, or it might be a product that you ask someone to make for you specifically. These are normally very expensive to buy, however they're normally the only ones in production. Advantages. So it's customised to meet specific requirements, high quality materials, and normally you've got high quality craftsmanship. Disadvantages is that takes time. Workers require specialist skills and training, and obviously because it takes time and because it's so skilled, it makes the product expensive to buy. Batch production. So this is a small quantity of identical items and we make them in around about the tens to thousands. So we've got jigs, molds and templates to aid these workers to make it easier to produce them. How can we tell if it's batch produced? So we've got small quantities Mix of workers and automated machinery. So you might have some CAD/CAM in there. For example, part of it might be laser cut. Stations of workers creating and assembling these products. So for example, if you've got a special edition car, a limited edition one, they're only going to produce maybe 100 at a time. Parts of that car may be different to what the original production might have been. Advantages: lower than one-off cost. Jigs, molds and templates often make the products identical. You can have some variety within the production. So for example, if you had a bike, it could be the same bike, but it could be detailed, or the aesthetics of it could be different. Disadvantages: so you've got to store all these products, and your jigs, molds and templates need to be checked and made correctly before use, and this is normally the most expensive part. So if you've got a mould for a vac former, for example, you need to make sure that is correct, and they're normally quite expensive to get made for you. Mass production. So these are the large quantities of products in the 10,000s to 100,000s, even more maybe. Assembly lines for the main product and sub-assemblies for small pieces and components. These processes are heavily automated, so it's hardly ever touched by a human. There are parts where it is, but it's mostly done by robots. You've got massive production output, so this is where products are produced within high quantities. They're all standardized and checked through for quality control to make sure they're all the same. So for example, if we're looking at these, one of the production methods would be, one of the quality control checks would be to make sure the right amount of liquid is poured into every single bottle. Advantages of mass production: large quantities can be made at once, all products are identical and to the same quantity. Heavily automated, that means it reduces your human error, so all products essentially should be pretty much perfect. Disadvantages of that: if you have to set up a factory, your starting costs are going to be very high. If a part of production stops, that's going to stop everything else. So as soon as some production stops, it might stop the whole process, which obviously means money is going to be lost and the products can't be made. Workers often can become bored of repetitive tasks and machine monitoring. Continuous production: this is where your production never ends. So it's where things like water and power, we always need them, they're always in high demand, they can never stop being produced. Heavily automated, there's a large product output, it's standardized, and the production is never ending, it's continuous. Advantages: large quantities can be made at once, all products are identical to the same quality, heavily automated to reduce human error, so pretty similar to mass production. Initial start costs again are high. If production stops, it can stop production, so if one part stops, and also workers can be bored, low skill workers, examples. Just in time is a bit of a different method, and Toyota as a car company use this a lot. It's where products are made to order, so it's good because your warehouse space isn't taken up. Basically, if that order comes in for that car, let's say it's the new Toyota Aygo, that car comes in, they make it, and it gets sent out. So warehouse space isn't needed. They only order materials that we need, so there's no surplus on that. However, if timings are wrong, orders are delayed, the financial impacts on that are big. So advantages of that: can be used in conjunction with a range of scales of production. So it could be for a one-off, could be batch, it could be mass. No warehouse or storage costs, only buy necessary parts or materials. Disadvantages: if orders or material parts are delayed, it can delay the product. This can be issues for the customer. Very careful planning is needed to make sure it works correctly. So it's a massive operation to get just-in-time production working correctly. So in my other videos I've gone through this. So you're going to have a go at some exam questions. I'm going to do one with you, then you're going to attempt the other two on your own. box your command words, underline keywords, structure your response, attempt the question. So, we're going to have a go at this one together. So we've got a command word, explain the cost advantages and disadvantages of moving from batch to high volume production. This is worth 3 marks. My first idea then was, high rates of production mean higher profit. So put that in green, that's obviously an advantage. High volume usually means lower skilled workers, and that means sometimes a reduction in wages. So if they're lower skilled, we can pay them less. So I suppose that's a good thing for the company, but a bad thing for the workers. Lower cost of making for the product, so your unit cost goes down, but also brings the cost of the product down. And finally, you've got high setup costs. So if you're moving from a batch production to high volume, you're going to have to get a warehouse to set it all up, and also a factory to make it up. So pause the video, have a go at structuring your response, then we'll go through the mark scheme. So, up to 3 marks for clear explanation. Answers show understanding of higher setup costs, but cost savings through high volume production. So what you could have had for advantages: cost saving through high volume production, lower unit cost achieved, price of unit will become more competitive, efficiency saving during long runs, lower skilled labour costs. Disadvantages: high setup costs, increased labour and technical support, machinery mould specialist equipment, accommodation area increased, storage of materials, components, products, quality issues in mass production, possibly affecting large numbers of products rather than in a single batch. 3 marks, so you need 3 points for that one. Okay, these are the ones I want you to try for yourself. So it might be worth reading through them, using the Get Busy method. After you've done that and you've answered the questions, I'm going to pop the mark scheme on the end so that you can mark them yourself, ready for next lesson.